You embarrassed him in front of everyone, she snapped, slamming the drawer shut so hard the silverware rattled. I stood by the fridge holding a half-empty water bottle like it could anchor me to something real. I embarrassed him. He called me pathetic in front of a room full of people. And you just laughed like it was some joke. She turned, face flushed, not with guilt, not with regret, but with irritation. It was a joke, Elle. You always take things too far. You make everything about you. My chest tightened in that all too familiar way, like I was both shrinking and exploding at once. I wanted to scream, to cry, to punch the drywall and regret it instantly. But I didn't. Instead, I took a slow breath and tried to rewind in my head how we got to this place, where a stupid dinner party for her team turned into my public humiliation. It started when her coworker Jonas raised a toast. Everyone was half drunk on overpriced wine and the smell of promotions in the air. He lifted his glass, winked at her, and said to the only woman who puts up with a man like that, jerking his thumb toward me, laughter louder than it should have been. My smile faltered, but I played along. I always did. Then came the follow-up like he couldn't help himself. Seriously, though, I don't know how you deal with someone who thinks printer toner is a personality. My stomach dropped. She laughed genuinely, tossed her hair back and nodded like, yeah, isn't he a handful? So I said something small, quiet. I just muttered, well, at least I don't flirt my way through deadlines. And the table fell silent. He stood up like he wanted to challenge me to a duel or some nonsense. You got something to say, buddy? I looked to her, to the woman who was supposed to know me, supposed to read my face like a map home. But she didn't meet my eyes, didn't say a word until we got home. And now here we were arguing in the kitchen over whether my dignity was worth defending. I don't care what he said, she continued. You humiliated me. No, I said, voice shaking. You humiliated me. And the worst part is, you were okay with it. You let it happen. You chose him. She rolled her eyes. It was one joke, Ellery. It wasn't just the joke. It was every second after when you didn't say a thing. Silence. So I stepped forward, placed the water bottle on the counter with a soft click, and said the one thing I'd been afraid to even think. You stopped being on my side a long time ago. I just finally noticed. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. That was the moment everything began to fall apart. I didn't sleep that night. I laid there stiff in bed, staring at the ceiling while she slept with her back to me like she'd done nothing wrong. Her breathing was slow, peaceful, like someone who believed they'd won the argument and tucked it neatly away before lights out that made it worse. It wasn't the silence between us that hurt the most. It was how easily she slipped into it. Like peace was her default, not mine. Around 2:17 a.m. I finally got up. My body wasn't tired, just heavy. Heavy with things I hadn't said, with things I should have said when I had the chance. I wandered into the hallway and leaned against the doorframe to her office. She always left the door slightly cracked, a habit from her freelancing days in case the cat we don't even have anymore wanted to sneak in. Her work laptop was still open, humming quietly, screen glowing like it was breathing. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity? Paranoia? No, it was desperation. The pathetic need to feel like I wasn't crazy. Like the things I felt at that dinner weren't invented in my head. There was a message window still open. Slack or Teams or one of those apps where people pretend to be productive while trading memes and office gossip. The last message sent was from Jonas. You okay? He looked like he was going to cry. face with tears of joy, and right below that, her reply. He's just sensitive. You know how he gets. Don't let it bother you. I stared at the blinking cursor under her words. It mocked me. He's just sensitive. That's how she explained me, like I was a burden she carried to work parties and brushed off afterward with a tired sigh. I wanted to shut the laptop and forget it, but I couldn't. I clicked the chat history. I shouldn't have. I knew I shouldn't have. Messages, so many weeks' worth, all through the workday. Jokes, inside references, memes I'd never seen before. I scrolled slowly, like peeling off my own skin one line at a time. He still makes you those dumb lunch notes, LOL. Yep. Cartoon hearts and smiley faces. That's weirdly adorable. More like clingy. More like clingy. I backed away from the desk like it had burned me. I wanted to scream to wake her up and confront her right then. But what would I even say? She'd just call me insecure. Sensitive, like I always am, like I always have been. Instead, I sat on the stairs in the dark, listening to the refrigerator buzz in the distance. A quiet hum in a house filled with louder silences. My hands trembled, not from rage, but from the aching hollowness of being misunderstood by the one person I trusted with every flawed part of me. That's when I heard it, her phone buzzing faintly from the nightstand. A message, then another. I crept down the hall, and before I could talk myself out of it, I looked at the screen. Jonas, still thinking about what you said earlier. You know I'd never treat you like that. I stared at the words for what felt like an hour. I didn't open it. I didn't dare, but I didn't need to. The meaning was loud enough, even through glass. I went downstairs and wrote a note. Not a cartoon one this time, not a silly joke or a heart with my name in it. Just a single sentence, scratched and shaky pen. If he's the one who makes you feel seen, then maybe I need to disappear. I folded it, left it on her pillow, and left the house. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't even bring my keys, but I needed out of there, if only for a night, because for the first time in our entire relationship, I felt invisible. I ended up at a 24-hour laundromat, not because I had clothes to wash, just because it was warm, quiet, and didn't ask questions. I sat in the corner next to a humming dryer that sounded like rain against glass. There were only two other people there, both too buried in their phones to notice the guy in a hoodie sitting like he'd just been hit by a semi-truck made of truth. I watched the drum spin. I kept wondering how many times something has to tumble before it falls apart completely. That thought kept replaying over and over because I couldn't stop thinking that maybe, we've been falling for a long time. And I was the only one who didn't hear the cracks. Around 6:10 a.m., I walked home. My legs felt numb, but my mind was racing, dragging every conversation we'd had into the harsh morning light. All the things she said that I brushed off, all the jokes she made that weren't jokes, all the times I convinced myself this is normal. This is just how couples talk when they're tired. The house looked different. Not physically, but in that way a place does when you stop feeling welcome in it. The lights were off. The note I left was still on the pillow. She hadn't touched it. Maybe she didn't see it. Or maybe she did and just didn't care. She came downstairs while I was sitting on the couch holding the TV remote like it had answers. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup, just skin and silence. She didn't ask where I'd been. Just stood there for a second too long before saying, "Are you seriously going to be dramatic about this?" I wanted her to say something else, something human. "Are you okay? Let's talk. I didn't mean for it to come out like that." Anything. But she went with dramatic. "I read your messages with Jonas," I said. My voice cracked on the name. She stiffened. Just a flicker, but I caught it. Her eyes darted sideways like she was trying to calculate how much I knew. "So you went through my stuff?" she asked, like I was the one who'd broken something. "I stood in a room full of people while your coworker mocked me, and you laughed. Then I watched you tell him I'm clingy and pathetic, like I wasn't the man who pays the mortgage on the house you decorate. Like I'm just renting space." That's when she turned it on me. "I defended you," she snapped. "I told him not to take it personally because you're just sensitive." "That's not mocking you. That's protecting your feelings. Protecting me like I was some fragile pet that couldn't handle noise." I think that was the moment something in me broke. Not like glass, but like a rusted hinge that had been holding on too long. "You don't defend people by agreeing with the ones who insult them," I said. She didn't answer. She didn't apologize. Instead, she crossed her arms and said, "You always want to be the victim." That one hit me in the ribs. "I don't want to be the victim," I said quietly. "But you keep putting me in that position." We stood there in silence, two strangers who used to be lovers, breathing the same air but living in different universes. I watched her walk away again, and this time, she didn't just leave the room. She left something else behind. A version of us that wouldn't come back. I heard the front door open an hour later. She said she needed space. She didn't say when she'd be back. She didn't ask me if I'd be here when she returned. But that's the thing. When someone makes it clear they don't see you anymore, they stop asking where you are. The next 2 days were a kind of silence I didn't know existed. Not just the absence of her voice in the house, but the echo of every word we hadn't said. The refrigerator sounded louder. The stairs creaked differently. The clock on the wall seemed to tick slower. Just to make sure I had enough time to think through everything I'd ignored for too long. I kept checking my phone stupidly. I told myself I wasn't waiting for her to text, but I was. Every hour I'd refresh the screen like she might finally say something, anything. But nothing came. No apology, no explanation. Just one short message early Saturday morning. "Gone for the weekend. Please don't make this worse." Gone. That was the word that stuck. Not, "I need time," not, "I need to think." Just gone, like she was checking out of a hotel room she never lacked in the first place. I didn't know where she went. She didn't say, but I had a sinking feeling I wasn't supposed to. Her friend Mila posted a group photo that night on Instagram. 3 women smiling, drinks in hand, tagged at some boutique hotel in a city 2 hours away. And there in the corner of the image, cropped but unmistakable, was Jonas, the man she swore was just a coworker, the man I'd watched her defend while I unraveled in front of her. It took everything in me not to message her. I typed things out, deleted them, rewrote them, deleted again. Every sentence I wanted to send started with "why" or "how could you," but ended in backspace. Instead, I went through our kitchen drawers and found the notebook she used to write in during her early freelance days. She stopped journaling once her job picked up, but she never threw it away. On the inside flap was a note I'd written to her when she landed that first gig. It said, "You were always meant to build your own world. I just hope I get to live in it with you." Looking at it now felt like reading someone else's handwriting. I thought about all the things I did over the years. The small stuff, like how I'd listen to her vent about coworkers for hours and memorize the names of people I'd never meet. Or how I rearranged my schedule so I could pick her up when she worked late, even when she said she didn't need me to. How I once drove 40 minutes to bring her allergy pills she left at home because she mentioned offhandedly she felt itchy. Those things didn't matter now. I was a punchline. I was clingy. I was dramatic. I was sensitive. I stayed up Saturday night watching the light from passing cars dance across our living room wall. I tried to remember the last time she touched me without obligation, the last time she kissed me without something else on her mind. I couldn't. That realization felt heavier than any insult. On Sunday afternoon, something snapped. Not in a violent way, not even in anger. It was quieter than that. I walked into our bedroom, opened her side of the closet, and stood there for a while. She had dresses I bought her for anniversaries, shoes I helped carry from store to store because she couldn't decide on the color, and a scarf I gave her when she had the flu 3 winters ago. I didn't touch anything, but I did take one thing, a photo. It was the one she kept on her nightstand, us on a cliff in Maine during our 3rd year together. My arm was around her waist. Her eyes were closed from laughter. It looked like love. It felt like fiction. I placed it face down on the floor and walked out of the room. When she came home that evening, she didn't even knock, just walked in, suitcase in hand, like nothing happened. She said, "I need to shower," like that would be the first thing we talked about, and maybe that was her way of saying this wasn't over. But she didn't ask where I'd been. She didn't ask if I'd missed her. She didn't ask about the photo. That silence was the answer. She left her suitcase by the door like it might unpack itself, or like maybe she wasn't even staying. I heard the shower turn on upstairs, the pipe shivering through the walls. And for a second, I stood in the hallway, not moving. I stared at that suitcase. It was green, scratched near the zipper, a travel tag dangling from the side with a faint smudged hotel barcode. My heart was beating so hard, I could feel it in my fingers. I should have left. I should have walked out while she rinsed off the lies. But I didn't. I sat at the edge of the couch like a guest in my own home. And when she came down 20 minutes later with her damp hair pulled into a bun and her face completely blank, like none of it happened, like the last 48 hours hadn't bruised everything between us, I knew she wasn't going to bring it up. Instead, she moved past me like I was furniture and opened the fridge. She pulled out a yogurt, peeled the foil back with a quiet hiss, and said, "You didn't eat anything again, did you?" I didn't answer. She didn't look at me, just kept stirring that spoon like it had all the answers. That's when I said, without turning my head, "You were with him." She paused. Barely. Just a flick of the wrist and a subtle shift in the air. "Don't start," she muttered. "You didn't go to Mass to clear your head. He was in the photo. You knew I'd see it." "I didn't post it," she said quickly, defensively. "I didn't ask to be tagged. Didn't ask to be there either." She looked up at me, and in that moment, I wasn't her husband. I was an interruption, a delay, a problem to manage. He was already there. I didn't plan it like that. But you didn't leave. What would that have solved? She snapped. It would have told me you still respected me. She slammed the spoon down on the counter, yogurt flinging onto the marble. "Do you hear yourself? You're acting like I cheated or something. I went away for a break because you made everything so impossible to breathe in here." A break. Not, "We need to talk." Not, "Let's figure this out." Just a break from me. Like I was some obligation she needed to escape from so she could laugh with Jonas and drink cocktails under dim hotel lights, while I sat here tracing the last 5 years of our lives in circles I couldn't escape. You knew exactly what that would do to me. I said you knew I was breaking. You just didn't care. She didn't answer. She wiped the counter with a dish towel and tossed it in the sink. And then, because apparently the conversation was over, She started to walk away. I stood and followed. Say it. Say what? She snapped. That you chose him. That you didn't come home because you wanted to be with him. She turned slowly. For a moment she looked sad. Not for me, for herself. Like the truth she'd been swallowing finally caught in her throat. I didn't plan it, she said softly. But being around him feels like I can breathe again. Like I'm not walking on eggshells. Like I don't have to be someone else. And there it was. She'd been saving that probably for months, maybe longer. I nodded. That was all I could do. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just walked upstairs and into our bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror, really looked. My eyes were bloodshot. My shoulders hunched like I was trying to fold inward. I barely recognized the man staring back. The worst part wasn't that she had said it. The worst part was I understood it. Somewhere along the way, I had become someone she tiptoed around. Maybe I was sensitive. Maybe I was exhausting. But I never stopped trying. I never stopped caring, and somehow that made me the villain in her story. Later that night, when she had gone to bed, I walked back into the bathroom and grabbed the mirror off the wall. It was small, just one of those cheap, framed ones we never got around to replacing. I took it to the guest room and set it on the floor against the wall. I sat across from it in the dark and stared. If she needed space, she could have said so. If she wanted someone else, she could have told me, but she didn't. She made me feel like I was less than and let another man hold the version of her I was no longer allowed to touch. That night I didn't sleep. I wrote something. A list of every moment I bent backwards, every time I stayed quiet when I should have spoken, every look, every dismissal, every forgotten thank you. I didn't know what I'd do with that list, but I knew it was going to end soon. The day after she came back, I tried to act like life was still intact. I went through the motions just like I always did, brushed my teeth in silence while she scrolled through her phone beside me. Poured coffee into the chipped mug she once claimed was her favorite. Sat in the car a few minutes longer than necessary before walking into work just so I could pretend I was somewhere else. It was a routine built on dust, quiet, crumbling, and hollow. But I followed it anyway because I didn't know how to stop. That evening we had dinner together for the first time in nearly a week. She made it pasta, the same kind she used to make when she wanted to apologize without saying the words. I could have read into that. I almost did. But when she set the bowl down in front of me, she didn't even look up. No smile, no acknowledgement, just silence and the clink of silverware as she sat across from me. We ate for 5 minutes straight, without a word. And then she said it. I told Jonas we shouldn't talk outside of work anymore. I looked up. She wasn't crying. She wasn't proud, either. She was just stating it like an item crossed off a checklist. Why? I asked. Her fork paused midair. Because it wasn't going anywhere, and because I didn't want you to use it as leverage against me. Leverage. That word made my stomach drop. It wasn't because it hurt you or because it was wrong. It was because you'd use it. Like I was some petty opponent in a custody hearing. Not the man who held her hair back the night she got food poisoning at her sister's wedding. Not the man who once spent 2 weeks building her a bookshelf from scratch because she cried when the one she bought online arrived broken. So it wasn't about guilt, I said slowly, or regret. She stared down at her plate. It's not that simple. No, it never is. Not when it's you. She didn't flinch, but I saw the way her lips pressed together tight, controlled. The way she blinked twice like she was keeping something in. I waited for her to say more, to open up. But she didn't, and something inside me just collapsed. I stood up and walked to the hallway closet, pulled out the cardboard box labeled Summer, and big black Sharpie, the one we hadn't touched in years.
Inside were beach towels, sunscreen bottles, probably expired by now, and a Polaroid camera she used to love. I dug underneath and found what I was looking for. A small velvet box. The one I had hidden there 3 years ago. The one that held a pair of earrings I never gave her. I bought them after we had our biggest fight, when I don't even remember the details of now. I was going to give them to her the next morning, a peace offering, but she came home that night, already smiling, kissed me like nothing ever happened, and told me everything felt perfect again. So, I never gave them, never needed to. I carried the box back to the kitchen and set it down between us. She looked at it like it might explode. "What is this?" she asked. I slid it toward her. "Something I should have given you when we still had a chance." She opened it slowly, then looked at me like I was trying to manipulate her. "Ellery, no, just listen for once." She sat back in her chair. Her hands were trembling slightly, though she probably didn't realize it. "I used to plan things for us," I said. "Surprises, little notes, trips you never knew were months in the making. I used to look forward to watching your face when you opens gifts, not because of the things themselves, but because you'd light up like the world was still new. That version of you. She's been gone for a long time." She stayed quiet, and the worst part is I thought if I just loved you harder, if I stayed loyal and soft and understanding, maybe you'd come back. Maybe you'd remember. I stood up, but now I know something else. That woman only existed for me. Everyone else got the version of you that you wanted to be seen. I walked to the doorway, paused, then said one last thing. "I hope he gets the version you gave me. The one who forgets how to care once someone stops being exciting." I left the house again. No suitcase, no destination. Just an old car with a tank half full and a wallet with $23. The earrings were still sitting in the box when I closed the door behind me, and the silence she left behind was finally mine. I ended up 30 meters away in a town I'd only driven through once years ago when we were still new and still laughing. I didn't pick it for any special reason. It just felt like the right distance, far enough to breathe, close enough to still pretend I might turn back. I parked near a little coffee shop on a corner, the kind of place with chalkboard menus and chipped mugs where everyone knows the barista by name. I stepped inside. Not to drink anything, but to exist somewhere unfamiliar. I sat by the window and watched the rain start to fall. It was soft, barely tapping the glass, but enough to make the world outside look like it had been smudged. Across the room was a couple mid-20s, probably still riding the high of early love. They were laughing about something. He had his hand on hers the entire time. She kept adjusting her scarf and giggling like his words tickled the inside of her ribs. I looked away, not because I was jealous, but because I remembered being that. And I remembered what it felt like to lose it. I pulled my phone out, dozens of unread messages, all from her. "Where are you? You didn't even take your wallet. You're being ridiculous. Can you at least answer me? I didn't mean for it to get like this." Not once did she say, "I'm sorry." I scrolled further. A voicemail. I hesitated, then put on my earbuds and listened. Her voice was strained, quieter than usual, as if she was speaking from a room with the lights off. "Ellery, I don't know if I should be mad or scared right now. You just walked out again, and I get it, okay? I get why you're hurt. I should have done more, should have said more. I don't know how to fix it. I don't even know if you want me to.
but please don't just disappear.
I saved the message, not because I needed to hear it again, but because it proved something she was finally feeling, what I'd been drowning in for months. That aching fear that the person you love is already left, even if they're still in the room. I ordered black coffee just to justify my presence, then stepped outside when the rain stopped. I didn't have a plan, still don't really. But I walked down that street until I found a small jewelry store tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. The kind of place you only go when you're either ready to begin something or ready to end it. I went in. There was a woman behind the counter, probably in her 50s, smiling the way only people who've seen real love and Ray all lost know how to smile. I didn't say much, just pulled a pair of earrings from my pocket and placed them on the glass. She looked at them, then at me. "Need them cleaned?" she asked gently. "No," I said. "I need them sold." She didn't question it, just nodded and disappeared into the back with them. While I waited, I saw something inside a display case. A single ring, simple silver band, no diamonds, no sparkle, just clean and quiet. I picked it up, and for a moment it made me think of what promises should feel like. Honest, unadorned, heavy in meaning, not price. When she returned, she gave me a modest cash value for the earrings and asked if I was looking to trade. "Maybe," I said. I bought the ring. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but it felt like a decision, and I hadn't made one of those in a long time that wasn't built on desperation. That night, I didn't drive home. I got a room at a motel. It smelled like air freshener and disappointment. The walls were thin, and someone on the other side was watching a crime show too loudly. But I didn't care. I laid on the stiff mattress, holding that small ring between my fingers, and thought about what it meant. It didn't symbolize forgiveness or regret. It wasn't about her. It was about remembering who I was before I became someone else's footnote. The next morning, I wrote a letter, not to win her back, not to hurt her, but to tell her the things I hadn't had the courage to say. I told her about the nights I stayed up crying in silence because I didn't want to make her uncomfortable. I told her about the way I felt, watching her laugh with someone else while I sat with cold food in front of me. I told her about the way it broke me to see her more alive in his company than she'd been in mine for years. And I told her that I was done. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I finally realized she stopped loving me and forgot to say so. I left the ring on top of the letter and dropped them both in the mailbox outside our house. I didn't knock, didn't wait for her to see me, because I wasn't leaving to make her miss me. I was leaving to finally find the version of myself she never cared to meet. I drove until the roads thinned and the city lights gave way to fields and slow turns. No map, no destination, just the faint hum of the radio and the rare peace of not needing to explain myself to anyone. That silence, once so unbearable in our house, now felt different. It wasn't empty. It was clean, quiet in a way that didn't punish me. I stayed in a lakeside town I'd only ever seen on postcards. There was a small cabin with a porch and an old wooden swing that creaked like it had stories of its own. I rented it for a week, then another. I told myself I'd figure things out soon, but I didn't rush. For once, I wasn't racing to patch things or make them easier for someone else. The mornings were slow. I'd wake up early, make coffee with too much sugar, and sit on the porch wrapped in a blanket while the fog rolled off the water. I started reading again, real books, not articles on how to fix a relationship that had already left me behind. I began journaling, just for myself. No audience, no expectations. just pages that held my anger and confusion without flinching. I didn't hear from her much after I left the letter. There was one text a few days later. I read it. "You're right. I was unfair. I'm sorry." That was it. No long explanation, no attempt to rewrite the past, just an acknowledgement. Simple and overdue. It didn't change anything, but it also didn't need to. Some truths live better without a response. Weeks passed. I let my hair grow out a little. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes. I started learning how to cook properly, something I never had time for before. I even tried painting one evening, though most of the blue ended up on my shirt. And slowly, the parts of me that had been dimmed started to glow again. Not brightly, not all at once, but steadily. I caught myself humming while washing dishes, smiling at strangers, even laughing without checking if anyone else was. That was new. One afternoon, I met someone completely by accident. Her name was Wren. She owned the small bookstore down the street. We talked about poetry and thunderstorms and how strange it is when a smell can bring back an entire year of your life. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't offer. We just existed slowly, curiously, like two people learning how to breathe again after forgetting they ever stopped. We're not a story yet. Maybe we never will be. But one evening, as the sky turned that soft amber color and we sat quietly on her shop steps, she reached over and squeezed my hand. "You seem like someone who finally made peace with himself," she said. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't flinch. I didn't second guess. I just nodded because she was right. I thought losing her would break me. But what it really did was set me.